Hey everybody, happy Monday. We are back with another episode of What's Happening with Kati. And today we're going to talk about a lot of things. First, we're going to talk about Lindsey Vonn and her opening up about her battle with depression since she was a teenager. We're going to talk about Adele and her talking about her divorce and her anxiety and all that's come into that. Also body image and losing weight. People hating on her for that for some reason. We're going to dig into South Korea because they're expanding their efforts to try to prevent celebrity suicides. I had no idea this was happening. And also Kelly Osbourne has checked herself back into rehab after being sober for many years. And we'll talk about the pandemic and the effects it's had on that. So let's just jump right in. I don't know if anybody follows Lindsey Vonn, but I have loved her since I was a kid. She's actually, it's funny enough, I didn't realize she's 37, so she's like almost exactly my age. I just turned 38. But she's a skier and an amazing skier. And I used to watch her as a kid. I've always loved the Winter Olympics. And recently she had a sit-down interview with CNBC. And I really appreciated it because she was talking a lot about her struggles with depression. She shares the things that she's done so to help her get through and to continue on. And these are things that you guys know I love. Things like journaling. Hey, I'm a huge fan. She talks about how it helps her get things out of her head. It helps her keep track of what she's working on and working towards those goals because she's had a lot of injuries in her career, and having those injuries leads to things like chronic pain and not being able to get out of bed for a little while as you recover. And these recoveries, she said, can take sometimes upwards of like 6 to 10 months. And so not being able to do the thing you love, for her it's skiing, but doing something that you enjoy, you aren't able to do that. How do you overcome that? And so she journals a lot, and I love that. She also talks a lot about how her support system is really important. And I think there is something to like professional athletes, how they always have like these teams, like whether it's a physical therapist, a doctor, a coach, all that stuff. It's kind of like they're already used to having a team. And I think for those of us in regular life who aren't professional athletes like myself, it's important to consider that for us. Like, what's a team look like for us? What's our support team? And putting that together, because I know, personally, but also I've heard from a lot of you that we're not going to be able to do it on our own. We need that extra support. And then another thing she discussed is, how having all these injuries and this chronic it can be chronic pain, but it's also just chronically having medical treatments is like the self-talk. And so she talks about using mantras to kind of help her out of it, and how a lot of what she does is right before a race and stuff, she has like certain things she tells herself. And then when all else fails, and this is the last of the things that she talked about, but my personal favorite is she takes a lot of naps. And as someone who needs like 9 to 10 hours of sleep a night, I know you heard me right, 9 to 10 hours. And there's no judgments around that, right? The average person needs around 8, but some people need upwards of 10 to 11. And we just had to figure out where we fall in that. And I happen to fall in the 9 to 10 hour range. And I just appreciated the fact that she talked about how when she feels overwhelmed and starts to be thinking negatively, sometimes she just naps as like a reset. And I think if we have that ability in our life, I know not all of us do, but sometimes a nap, it's just the thing you need to kind of set yourself straight. So we have more and more people coming out talking about their struggles. And I think the more people that do it, the better. But what do you think? Another person that was in the news whom I personally love, and it also just caught my eye because there's so many ways we can take this conversation, but it's the conversation around Adele and her new album. And a lot of it has been inspired. I don't even like to use the word inspired, but I guess kind of a catalyst to this album was her divorce and her own personal growth. But she's talking a lot, not only musically, but in interviews, she's been talking a lot about her anxiety. And in the album, she actually includes kind of like a voicemail of her having a panic attack and her trying to manage it. She's just being honest about where she's at and her struggles. And again, the vulnerability of people that we kind of hold in these like we put people on pedestals, right? I'm like, Adele is amazing. She's super talented. She has a beautiful child and had a beautiful family. You think all these things about people and make a lot of assumptions that because of success and fame, their life must be, all puppy dogs and ice cream. But she's sharing this part of herself where she's like, no, I really, really struggle. And I've struggled for a long time. What she shares really is that her anxiety was getting the best of her, and it was running her life. It was making it hard for her to do the things that she wanted to do. And her relationship with her husband was deteriorating. And she talks a little bit in this Vogue article about how there wasn't really anything bad that went on in her marriage. It just didn't work and she wasn't happy. And I know that sounds silly to say like I appreciated that, but I think a lot of times when we talk about celebrity divorces, or even when people come out talking about divorces, sometimes it can be really nasty, or there can be, drug or alcohol abuse or physical abuse, or there's something going on, or we're like, oh my God, that sounds really toxic or terrible. But Adele's just saying it just didn't work. And I think that's the most common kind of reason for divorce or reason for relationships to end. And her talking about her worry that it was going to come out in the news and they were going to try to spin it into something that it wasn't. And that like spurred on her anxiety and, subsequent panic attacks and things like that. Once you put yourself out there and you share it, I think this is why a lot of people don't, is that then you can get backlash. And I'm sure she's seen some stuff online. The one that shocked me the most was because I have I don't know if it's the newest issue of Vogue. She's on the cover. And if you don't know, Adele has recently lost weight because she talks about how she was working out to feel better about herself and how she was kind of in this like self-destructive spiral. And she started working out and she started to feel better, and then she wanted to work out more. And she doesn't talk about it like a weight loss thing or any body shaming. But what shocked me the most is her conversation about weight loss was from an eating disorder specialist perspective and another woman in the world, is I was like, oh, that's a pretty healthy way to look at it. She didn't talk about like restricting and crazy diets and keeping track of numbers and working with all these trainers. She didn't talk about this huge team or anything. She essentially said, I used to not treat my body well and I felt bad because of it. And now that I have a child, I don't want them to be around an unhealthy relationship like her marriage. She didn't feel it was healthy. And I don't want them to see me being unhealthy. And she didn't talk about like healthy, unhealthy, like I can't eat food that I want. She was like, I want them to see me being active and I want to feel good and I want to be doing good things, setting a good example for my child. And I feel better when I do exercise. And so as a result, I've lost some weight. People were mad. Finally, someone just talking about how it feels good to move your body. It felt good for her. She wasn't doing things that did feel good. She made some positive change and she got shit for it. And I didn't understand. If you're one of the people that were frustrated by it, explain that to me. Is there something that I'm missing? Maybe I didn't read a certain portion of an article, or I missed the part where she said she was counting calories or something. I don't know. I was really happy for her. I like to see people feeling good and doing good. And I like that she wants to be a good example for her child. And I don't know, it was all good to me. So I was really excited to hear about Adele. But moving right along, because there's just so much to talk about, the next topic is South Korea apparently has been having an increase in celebrity suicides. And the reasons that they say are depression rates have risen, anxiety rates have risen. I think we could all agree with all that. But then cyberbullying as being a huge component. And so they're trying to figure out a better way to navigate this and how they can better manage cyberbullying, and also how can they check in on people and make sure there are resources available. And I think that's something that our world needs to do, is to make sure that resources are available. I think so often, especially mental health treatment, isn't part of our healthcare system, or they give us like 6 sessions, or you have to wait for like 2 years to see someone and then you get 10 sessions. I feel like the understanding of mental health care just isn't there at the highest level. And my hope is that someone will stand up and speak up so that we can set up structure that is actually helpful. We need to have more early on care. And part of that comes with like removing the stigma and just having conversations like this, right? Where we talk about mental health and how important it is for us to take care of it, just as important as our physical health. I'm really just glad that South Korea is talking about this openly with news outlets so we can read about it, and that they're trying to implement some strategies and put resources in place to help people better manage and feel supported, because it's been a rough go here for the last year and a half, but for many of us, it's been a rough go for I don't know how long. And the final story I want to talk about is Kelly Osbourne checking herself back into rehab after being sober for 4 years. And she shared on Instagram really just, she talked about the relapse and how hard it's been, and kind of relating it to the pandemic and how it was hard for her to get her footing, and she didn't really know what else to do to cope. And I really wanted to bring this up, not only, again, someone speaking up about their mental health and talking about addiction in a real way, but also just the fact that we know because of the pandemic that drug and alcohol relapses have gone up. And I forget the exact percentage, but I know as a clinician, other clinicians in my space are talking about how many of their patients have struggled to stay on track and to continue their sobriety. Again, going back to like how celebrities aren't you know, they don't have special powers. They just maybe have more resources, right? Kelly Osbourne found herself struggling, and I'm glad that she's talking about it honestly and openly, and I'm glad that she's in rehab, and I hope that, you know, that she gets the support she needs to get back into her sobriety. And I've always hated this, like, you guys know this, I've always hated keeping track and counting. I know it can be really powerful, but I also feel like it can be like a, I don't know, like a heavy weight, or like expectations start to get greater and greater. I know there's pluses and minuses to it, but I'm definitely like more leaning towards the side of like not keeping track like that and being like, I got through today, kudos to me. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts too. Like, did you struggle during the early days of the pandemic? Are you still struggling? I know that sobriety isn't easy in general, and I'm sure with the added stress of just everything, could be job loss, right? Those are little T traumas. It could be relationships. I know divorce rates went up during the pandemic, probably because we had never spent that much time with our loved ones. There's a lot that had happened, and a lot of those are traumas, and a lot of those are very stressful events at the very least, not to mention just feeling like our world's on fire, and that can cause us to want to cope in ways that maybe aren't the healthiest. And I know I struggled at the beginning just trying to figure out how I'm going to take care of myself in the new way that the world is. I don't even know how to talk about it, and I'm still learning every day how to take care of myself. And thank you to all of you who sent in your videos and your questions for the next What's Happening. I'm still getting those together, and we'll add those in to the next episode. But please, if you are new and you want to participate, feel free to send in any questions or any articles you want me to read to Kati@KatiMorton.com. You can record these video questions on your phone. Make sure that you do it horizontally, 30 seconds or less. Make sure that there's lighting so we can see your beautiful face and hear your voice. And feel free to send those over as you get them. I will be putting a bunch of those into the next episode of this. And yeah, I'd just love to get your thoughts. Let me know what you thought about any of the stories we covered down in those comments below. And if there's something else you want me to address, you can leave it there too. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time. Bye. I started to sweat there at the end. I don't know why.